Now, Pope Francis received a warm welcome as he was met by thousands of excited Mozambicans Wednesday, including President Filipe Nyusi, as he began his first papal visit to Southern African country. The pontiff landed Wednesday night at Maputo's airport to a jubilant crowd. Many women wore capulanas, traditional Mozambican cloth printed with colorful images of Francis. In a recorded message released ahead of his arrival, the Pope addressed Mozambicans in the nation's dominant language, Portuguese.
I invite you all to join my prayers so that God, Father of all, strengthens reconciliation, fraternal reconciliation in Mozambique and Africa, the only hope for a strong and lasting peace.
The Pope also met Thursday with lawmakers, youth and clergy, giving 3 speeches. The pontiff is scheduled to lead a mass on Friday. After Mozambique, Francis will travel to the island nations of Madagascar and Mauritius. Now, for more on the pontiff's visit to Mozambique, I'm joined live via Skype by VOA's Southern Africa correspondent, Anita Powell. Good evening, Anita. Fill us in on what the Pope told Mozambican lawmakers today.
Well, it's been a full day, but it was interesting when he met with lawmakers this morning, he really put the onus on them to secure peace. He said peace is not just an absence of war, it's an active process. It's something that needs to be guarded and needs to be maintained. And it was interesting that he said this both to the head of the ruling Frelimo party and the head of the opposition Renamo party. So those were quite strong words.
And what's next on his itinerary?
Tomorrow he'll go lead a mass at a stadium just out of Maputo, and he's also going to go to a hospital and see patients at the hospital. And that's when, after that, he'll depart to go to Madagascar and Mauritius.
Anita, we know that the pontiff has expressed his concerns about environmental issues. Did he make any mention of this issue at all today?
He actually stressed that in his opening remarks to lawmakers. He said, I want to be sure that the first words that I say are in solidarity and sympathy with the people of Mozambique who suffered from not one, but 2 cyclones this year. That's Kenneth and Idai, that destroyed large parts of coastal Mozambique. So he did sound the alarm on that and urged reconstruction and as usual, unity, peace, and development.
Now, Anita, anything else that you've observed with the pontiff's visit in Maputo? Because we know usually he has some interesting things to do whenever he goes to African countries. Have you observed anything peculiar this time?
I've noticed 3 things. The first thing that I've noticed is that today he hasn't yet made mention of the horrible violence in South Africa. And I wonder what his motivation is for not bringing that up. Hopefully he will bring that up tomorrow. Second thing is his entire delegation is staying at a Chinese-owned hotel, which is interesting as we know that the Chinese government does not approve of organized religion. And so it's interesting to have the head of one of the world's major religions staying at a Chinese hotel. I wonder how the Chinese government feels about that and how the Vatican feels about that. And then the third thing, of course, as you mentioned, are these lovely capulanas. It's very Mozambican. These are extravagantly colorful wraps that women wrap themselves in with images of the Pope. And the 3 words that I think are really the pillars of his visit, and they are hope, peace, and reconciliation.
What else did the Mozambicans expect to hear from the Pope? I know he also spoke to the youth. Anything that you heard them say, this is what we expect to hear him say?
They echoed, actually, their older counterparts' hope that the Pope would talk about peace and reconciliation. Because as you remember, this is a nation that had a 16-year civil war that only ended in 1992, and then conflict never really died down. It's been brewing very slowly since then. So this is a country where entire generations of people have only known conflict. And so both old and young alike want peace in Mozambique, and that seems to be the overarching, overriding desire for Mozambicans.
Anita, where is the mass going to be held tomorrow?
It's going to be held outside of town in a place called Zimpeto. Interestingly enough, it's going to be in another Chinese-built stadium. There's a hospital right near there, and it's quite a ways out of Maputo. The Pope did say that he wanted to make it to the rural areas that were affected by the cyclone, but it just wasn't possible. He didn't make it clear why that is, but it is quite difficult to get out there, and there are some security issues in the countryside in Mozambique. But this is as far as he's going to stray from the capital, Maputo, which has greeted him with lovely weather. This is a beautiful seaside capital, and so he can expect to have a very warm welcome here in Mozambique.
Anita, thank you so much for that reporting. Anita Powell reporting live via Skype from Maputo.